The day before the big clash in Dublin, Ireland are waiting for the Springboks. Russie put it quite plainly when he said, "We're the red meat you're wanting to eat." I don't think you could put it more graphic than that. Ireland having won 25 of their last 27 home games, somewhere Russie's never won before. We had to discuss it with me, as always, Nick Mallet, Gavin Rich. Guys, Nick, starting with you. Maybe let's before we get into the Ireland game, let's talk. We spent a lot of time on Franco Mostard's red card on Sunday. Just it's been rescinded, or should I say, downgraded to a yellow. In one way, it feels to me that's World Rugby's way of sort of saving face. That they don't throw their refs under the bus totally, but sort of try and get
Yeah,
an outcome that everybody's half happy with. Just your thoughts on that?
yeah. I'm glad that logic came through at the end. Prevailed. It was clearly not head, shoulder to head, and it was shoulder to shoulder. We did say there was the possibility the arm might have ridden up. I've just had a look at another Zambana who made a tackle on Marco van Staden, which was almost exactly the same. A big tall guy goes in with the shoulder. The arm doesn't completely wrap. He hits him on the shoulder. It could have ridden up to hit his neck a little bit, and nothing was done for that game for that tackle. I don't think so. It's the yellow card option. I don't completely disagree with. I think the fact that it wasn't a complete rep might have bought it, but honestly, that was such a poor decision. To give Mostert a permanent red card on the basis of some information from a TMO, who said there was direct contact. Everyone could see that there wasn't. It just makes it more important, I think, that any foul play incident, I think, should go. It should be a yellow card, full stop, sent to the bunker, and the bunker can upgrade it to either a 20-minute red card, or if he considers that thuggery and extremely dangerous play, then at extreme circumstances he can make it a permanent red card. So I'm just glad that they came to their senses, because it was a shambles last weekend.
Gav, just on that, see, Loert de Jager's appeal didn't succeed. They dismissed it. But I suppose in his case, it was a bit more clear that there was some sort of, and it could have been a red card.
Yeah. Am I coming in now, Brent? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look. The thing that irritates me is that it was so patently clear at the time that it was the wrong decision, and who I feel sorry for. Okay, so South Africa got away with it, like they did against France the week before. They managed to win with 14 men, but Ben Jason Dixon basically ended because of what was patently a wrong decision. Mostert himself, he's not young anymore. He isn't able to play now against Ireland because Rassie has rightly stuck to his that if you're not available for all the training sessions, then I won't select you. And I think he would have probably come close to being in part of the bomb squad, because the Springboks have, I mean, maybe there's a tactical thing for the Ireland game, but they often do choose two locks on the bench to make it a sort of a full type 5 replacement for the other type 5. So Franco Mostert might have ended up playing his last game for the Boks, because he is, of course, Japan based. So who knows, whether he's going to still be in favour next season. And then, of course, Zach Porthen was pulled from the field very early in that game last week. So that's my one bugbear. And then my other bugbear is one that I think I might have mentioned last week is what sanction is there? I mean, do we know? Such a poor decision. I used the word in last week, and I think that the disciplinary hearing has backed up that. So what is there for the referees? I mean, I know. Look, we don't want to chase people away from being referees. I mean, there's been enough sort of abuse from social media for certain referees, and I know if you read Wayne Barnes's book, probably you'll read a lot about that. But at the same time, a player, we know when Loert de Jager is sanctioned after a game, we know he gets 4 weeks. What happens to the referees? And that is one of the things that bugs me as well. So, my final word on the red card is I feel sorry for Ben Jason Dixon. I feel sorry for Franco Mostert. I feel sorry for Zachary Porthen. And I also feel sorry that it's only the players that get held up for doing bad things during a game, and not the officials that sometimes make the errors as well.
Yeah. Well, let's turn to this week's game. Obviously, Ireland waiting Dublin after their big win over Australia. They obviously have got a bit of momentum now. They're going to be a lot tougher than they were when they played the All Blacks in Chicago and on home field. And there's a bit of a thing with Russie. There's a bit of a thing with South Africa from Irish fans' sort of perspective. It's going to be a hostile environment. The Boks are used to that, of course. But Nick, it's what makes it such a difficult place to win?
Well, I think mainly because Ireland is a top team with a very good group of coaches. So I think they've managed to get together their best available side at the right time. I think Furlong is absolutely crucial. Porter, Furlong, and Sheehan in the front row. They're a front row that don't really take much good step, and I was listening to Shimmy actually talking about, and he said they do come with a lot of tricks, they hit and then seed the hit, they go down, they sometimes scrum around, walk around if they're under pressure. So it'll be really interesting how the scrums go this weekend. But they have got British Lions there in that front row, who are a properly decent front row with a lot of experience. Then they've tried to match as well our physicality, I think, by playing Baird on the flank, a sort of an attempt to put a Peter Steph Toy-ish type of player there at number 7. They've got Caelan Doris back at his best place, number 8, and Josh van der Fleer, who's a really good ball carrier. Bernard Locke. It's a good pack of forwards, really good pack of forwards. And then, is there a last hurrah in Gibson Park, James Lowe, the older guys? This is the question that you're going to have to ask, because we're going to bring a lot of physicality. And I know they brought physicality in that game in Durban, but I had a feeling we were on top of them in that game at the World Cup. We went down not because we didn't play well and we weren't in the right areas of the field. We went down because Mani missed, I think, 3 kicks, three or four kicks, or 4 kicks were missed, because I think Faf also missed one, and we could have put that game to bed with a better goal kicker. So why is it difficult? The crowd always, when you play away, you're playing what I consider to be with England, the number 1 team now in Europe. They have a very proud record against South Africa, and Rassie always brings physicality, because that's our number 1. Apart from the skill that we've developed, but we've never lost the physicality. And Ireland is a team that funnily enough, they quite like that. They were very passive against Australia last weekend, but they won't be passive on Saturday, tomorrow. They're going to be coming, really coming out at us and trying to protect their not unbeaten record, but their record at Lansdowne Road.
Gav, that World Cup game and the game in Durban, there weren't many tries. I think there was 1 try in Durban. There was 8 Pollard penalties there, 2 drop goals. The one difference, though, to me, is that the Springbok team's attack is probably about 30% ahead of where they were in Durban. How much of a difference is that going to make?
Well, you just said it. You said Pollard 8 penalties. So Pollard started that game. So immediately that's a different attacking dynamic for the Springboks. Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu was playing, I think he made his 3rd appearance in that game. He'd played against Wales as a late replacement, as a late substitute coming on. And I think he had a brief cameo in that game at Loftus. And then he ended up playing 78 minutes at fullback because Willie got injured early in that game. And he made a couple of poor decisions in that game. Remember, he was very young and callow then. Now it's a year on. The Springboks are a year on. I remember leaving the airport in Durban after that game, and there were these big, if you go out of King Shaka International and you're queuing to go through the security, there are those like billboards that flash, and I don't know what newspapers were advertised. And I remember there were big things that going on about questions about Tony Ball, about the way that the Springboks were playing then. So that was very much the beginning of South Africa's evolution. That was 2 or 3 games into. I'm talking about the Durban game now. They showed flashes of Tony Ball in that very first game at Loftus. And then, as Nick just mentioned now, Ireland were very physical in the Durban game. And the Springboks sort of played a different game in that. It was a much tighter game. But they should probably still it wasn't for poor management from the Boks towards the end of that game. You'll remember that Ireland shocked the Boks in the first half at Kings Park, and then in the second half, the Boks took the lead and then lost out to two quite freaky drop goals right at the end. So I just think that if you look back at the games, and Nick is quite right, I thought that the Boks had the better of Ireland as well in that pool game at the World Cup, and they were very profligate, very wasteful in that game in Dublin when Damien Willemse, that is, was at fly half. You'll recall Pollard was injured. At that stage, Sasha Feinbergen was playing centre for the Stormers, and Marnie had yet to have a cap for the Boks. So it was a very different era for South African rugby then. And I can't remember who did the goal kicking other than Damien, but there were goal kicks missed in that game, and the Boks probably would have won that game. In fact, almost certainly would have won that game had they landed their kicks. So although Ireland have a good record against South Africa in recent times, the margins have been very narrow. I think that the growth in the South African game has been much more than the Irish growth in the last 16 months probably since they played in Durban. And I think that's the big difference. That's why I'm quite confident that the Springboks will win on Saturday. But look, we've all been to Lansdowne Road, or as I still call it. It is a difficult place to go. I mean, I remember the first time I went there was 1994. Kitch Christie was the Springbok coach, and it was everybody always spoke about Kitch Christie being an unbeaten Springbok coach. He actually did lose 2 games on that very first tour. They were non-test matches. He lost to Scotland Day and against the Barbarians, who didn't play Barbarians rugby that day. And the Irish people were in behind the Barbarians. That was my first experience of that place. It's an intimidating place for not just the player, sometimes even just for a visiting journalist.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say my first time in the Lansdowne Road was the Paul Honus talking to John Smith. Go talk to your players, and then obviously Ronan Agaris tapped and scored. So yeah, I mean, we've all got these sort of memories over there. But I mean, Ireland, that's still a very, very good Ireland team, Nick. I mean, we spoke about that.
Yeah.
And then we look at the team that we picked. The only Curtly Orange is obviously out with concussion, but Canan Moody's the type of player at the moment. The form he's in, the way he played against Italy, especially in those last 20 minutes, he's the type of player you just want on the field at some point, and great under the high ball. But otherwise, pretty much what we expected, and this pretty much close to what the Boks starting strongest team is at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this was virtually the side that played against France, except for Curtly Orange. But I mean, there's so many good players. I mean, I feel sorry for Ethan Hooker, who had such a good game last weekend. Canan Moodie was outstanding. You're talking about the progress we've made. If you think on this tour alone, we've had special moments from Jaco Reinach against France with that individual try. You've had Grant Williams come on and score two beautiful tries in the last 10, 20 minutes of a game. You've had Sasha create chaos when he's been on the field. You've had solidity and experience and great getting across the advantage line from our centres. And the back three can provide sparks at any given moment. I mean, I think that Damien had his best game for a very long time at fullback last weekend. So we're going into this game with a very good attitude. The fact that we've rested most of these players last weekend, and they've had it in front of mind that it was France and Ireland are your 2 big games, and then we're going to mix and match the other test matches, has been a very good thing. And I think we've got experienced players as well. It's interesting. I think there are 5 or 6 of these guys who are playing tomorrow in that terrible 38, whatever it was, 3 loss. I think Etzebeth played. I think Damon Dallander and Creel, Jesse Creel played in the forwards. I think Theo was on the field as well. So I think there were a few who've experienced, Peter Steph Toy as well.
Yeah.
So a few who've experienced the embarrassment, and they will want to rectify that. There's no question about it. Now, I made a point. I said that, and I think you've said it before as well, is that when we get it right, there isn't any team in the world that can stop us. Because when we get it right, we get that forward momentum, we get the front foot ball, and we've got a back line that can really exploit space. So, and we're taking good decisions. I mean, post the Ellis Park test, and post the game in Cape Town. I think we've sort of got the balance right between our kicking game and our attacking ball in hand game and our forward dominant game, our driving maul game. There isn't any real area that we're poor at the moment. So I think if we can get it right on Saturday, and I've been a bit confident by saying I think it's going to be a 10-point win. So I think everyone said it's been it's going to be within 5, within 7. They've all the last 4 games have all been tight. I've got a feeling that we're going to get on top of them on Saturday, and I think a lot is going to depend on obviously the referee. I'm not sure who is the ref on Saturday, but let us pray. Sorry.
Matthew Carley.
Matthew Carley, yeah, very very stable, very strong ref, and I believe that we're going to get through this game without red cards. Let's hold thumbs that that'll be the case.
Yeah, I think we all hope for no red cards. Gavin, just something we mentioned a bit earlier was the goal kicking in that World Cup game. The goal kicking cost us in the Durban game. Although there was the 8 penalties, the drop goals on their side. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of high balls. It's probably going to be wet in Dublin. It's always wet in Dublin. I suppose there's never a dry day in Dublin. So that all comes into play as well. I mean, Sasha's good on. He hasn't really missed many. And Marnie's still got, I suppose, his critics and stuff, but he's been exceptional this season as well in his goal kicking.
Yeah, just Nick, did you say 9-point win for the BOKS?
No, I said 10, more than 10.
Okay, yeah. we're almost on point because I think it's going to be 8. But that's always my way of saying that it'll be by more than a score. If I say 8, it's normally to say, listen, it's not going to be within 7. I think it's going to be 8 as well. Yes, Brendan, it's look, I mean, the Irish were very good with the aerial game last week, and but they were playing. I love getting this in. They were only playing against Australia. 46-19 win for Ireland. A 46-19 win for Ireland against Australia in 1999 would have been something that we would have written about. That would have been written about for months afterwards. But 46-19 now against Australia isn't quite the same thing. So, look, is it actually going to? Have you actually seen a weather forecast? Is it going to be wet in Dublin?
Well, I've been told somebody sent me something, but I haven't seen it myself. But it's always pretty wet in Dublin anyway.
Well, the last time I was at a game in Dublin, it was a wet weather game, and I think it might have been Patrick Lambie who kicked the goals that won the BOKS that game. So it was a miserable day. I do remember it. It was either the last time I was in Dublin or the previous time. It might have been in the Peter de Villiers era or the Heineken Meyer era. I can't remember. But look, I mean, I think that a wet game might even suit the BOKS to some extent, because the Ireland do base a lot around their quick recycling and their running game, their attacking shape. So I think that if it's a wet weather game, maybe I then wouldn't go as high as a 10-point win, but I would still favour the BOKS.
Points at 2.
I think just one thing I think we need to be really aware of is that they got a bit of rhythm against Australia, and it was really interesting to see how well they were playing. What they call the front door and the back door. The guy taking it to the line and either playing the little pass to the guy coming short outside him, or else playing out the back to create space out wide. They also leave 2 players or 1 player always in the extreme on the touchline, basically, to give Prendergast the opportunity for that cross kick. They use that a lot. We saw Gibson Park do it with their last try, a really good little cross kick as well. So they are a clever team, and I think, funny enough, it's not really our attack or the fact that we're going to win ball that's going to be important. I really believe it's our defense that's going to be put. That is what's going to have to stand up on Saturday. We've got to be absolutely aware that they've got the possibility of those little inside balls that they play inside, they play outside. The guy holds on, takes it into contact. They play deep, and then they attack again to a wider channel. They've got the flat cross kick, so they really did define this attacking game on the baseline, on the advantage line. I beg your pardon, and it's our defense that's going to be put under pressure, I think, if we don't stay really connected.
Yeah, actually, Nick, that's what you've actually brought up a point that's connected to what I was saying about Kings Park last year, was because that was the beginning of Tony Ball, but it was only 2 games into post Jacques Nienaber. And I remember the second half of that game at Loftus before that. Ireland didn't expose us. They exposed us quite badly on defense in that second half. Remember, they looked at one stage we were going to put them away by a big score, and they
Yeah.
came back, and in the end, I think they were within a score. And then at Kings Park in the first half, they also exposed a few Bok errors on defense. So
Yes.
I think that's another plus in the favor of the Boks tomorrow, is that they've now had the new defense coach and the new defense team, because I'm not sure there's
Yes.
just one guy running the defense at the Boks anymore. I think there's a team of them, but that defense is obviously developed since July last year in Durban as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't think
True.
it was going to come in there, but I was going to say, Gav, just to add to what you said there, I think it was that inside ball that exposed them
Yeah.
at Loftus there, just around the fringes there, and I think in Durban there was also one that also did that as well. They've
Yeah.
tightened up obviously a lot since then. Just on that though, just Nick, maybe a final thing before we move on to something else on the games. The fact that the Boks have won with 14 in the last couple of weeks and had to work a lot harder off the ball and getting around and covering gaps and stuff. To me, that must be a positive for them going into this game in terms of their work rate and that, because they know, and the fact that they know even if something goes wrong, they'll pick themselves up and work themselves back into a winning position.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic for their confidence. It was, I mean, it was so clever the way they managed the game. They sort of battened down the hatches. They concentrated on our basics, which are still territory, still contestable. A swarming defense, a huge work rate, a great impact off the bench from the guys who come on. They make a huge difference. So it was, they will be going into this game thinking, listen, if we could do that with 14 men against France and against Italy, who were, they're a good team, Italy. They've come within a couple of points of beating France a few times in the Six Nations recently. So they're not miles off a team like France. And now we're playing Ireland. If we keep 15 on the field and we maintain that intensity and work rate and accuracy, because has been so impressive, is how hard we work for those contestables and how hard we work at the breakdown and how we try and mess up their ball to make it slow ball so that we can set quicker. I mean, all the sort of off the ball things that most people don't see, we've become very good at, and we have to maintain that against Ireland.
Just moving on then, this week we had the World Rugby Player of the Year nominees coming out there. And before we get to the breakthrough player, because I think we probably want to say something about that as well. But the world, three South Africans out of the four, Louis Beret is the only other, Malcolm Marx, Oxen Chen, Peter Steph du Toit, all names you'd expect to be there as a South African. I want to make a thing that I think is about time that World Rugby actually recognizes a prop, and I think Oxen Chair should have won it last year and could easily. And if it was up to me, I would give him the gong by a country mile. I don't know, because he's been the most consistent player, and props never get recognized. Nick, your thoughts, Gav?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% behind that. I think that he's never been dominated by a tight head in the last 3 years, and he's won us so many penalties. Obviously, it's a group effort in the pack, but you have to have a loose head who's your fulcrum, who actually drives through the tight head and gets them on the back foot, because that allows the tight head to follow. And he's been just absolutely brilliant for us in that role. Not only that, his ball skills are good, his ball carries are good, and his defense is good. So, I mean, Ox is a gold nugget for us, and I think it's a huge compliment that he's in. Well, first of all, that he's in there, and I'm glad he's been picked. But I would like to see him win it. I would say the person who's going to push him hardest will probably be Marx, who's had one of his best seasons this year as well. Peter Steph he's always so consistent, and Berry is unbelievable on attack. I'm not absolutely certain he's that good on defense or under the high ball. So I think they're looking at more his try scoring abilities that has got him into that place. But I would definitely go with Ox on this one.
Gav, before you
Well,
come in,
Brendan,
I mean, I suppose they had to have somebody else, then they couldn't have four Springboks. We'd all love four Springboks to be in that nominee. But just while I'm going to mention the breakthrough player of the year, there's obviously a couple of them. So Eddie's there, Ethan Hooker's there. But it seems to me everybody thinks Henry Pollock's going to take it, even though he hasn't started a test match yet. Maybe we can talk on both of those while we're there.
Well, firstly on Ox, I actually do think Marx is going to win it. Funnily enough, because I think that he's had a huge influence on games. But it's interesting how that people ignore who wins what rugby matches. I mean, Oxenshire was the guy who got us into the World Cup final
Yeah.
against England when he came onto the field and late in the game. And I played prop at school, and I used to think this isn't like, why I'm not. I actually didn't like rugby because I was playing in a position that I sort of thought, well, it's not really that important. I'd rather be a fly half or something. But as I've got old, I had no talent for that, obviously. But as I've got older, I've realised, like, jeepers, I was actually playing in a really important position, and I've actually taken it more seriously because it is actually important. I mean, if you speak to club owners and that, the tight head, obviously, more than the loose head, is the most valuable player. I mean, if you want to sort of fork out money, like the Stormers I don't know if they actually fork out money because he wanted to come home to series, but somebody like Wilco Lowe coming back to the Stormers is huge, and it's a huge loss to the Bulls. It's that is actually modern the scrumming is so important. So it would be good to see World Rugby recognise the importance of the players in those positions, and they haven't done that for a while. I mean, I don't really pay that much attention to the World Rugby, so I'm actually not sure. Oh, Keith Wood, I think, was the previous front row forward to win it, and we know how long it is since Keith Wood's been on the rugby field. But turning to Henry Pollock, look, I do like Henry Pollock. And I think you, Brendan, actually had a. I know people say that he's too cocky, and again, that word arrogance will come in. And I think in his case, maybe there is actually arrogance because we say confidence, but the way he celebrates sometimes, and the way sometimes there is something a little bit more, something Kevin Peterson about him, if you know what I'm saying, like. And but Henry, you Brendan chatted to Cameron Harnicum not that long ago. And I know you asked him who his most difficult opponent was. And he's only played against Henry Pollock once. And he said that, if I remember correctly, that he was one of the most difficult guys he's ever played against in that Champions Cup game at Loftus last year. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, he said Henry Pollock was, and he also said to me when I asked him about his comeback and when he's going to be back, he said he doesn't care. It's sort of now end of November, December. He said, but that Northampton Bulls game, he wants to play because he wants to play against Pollock again, and he's determined. It was fascinating. You don't often see players talk about a singular opponent like that, but he's almost obsessed with him. Yeah, I mean, Gavin, I mean, when I saw Henry Pollock at the 20s and first one for Northampton against the Bulls, he was exceptional. And he is a special player. I just sometimes wonder, I just have to laugh at the World Rugby thing. It's the hype around the player. And let's be honest, if Australia had won the Lions series, then Suhaili probably would have been the hype around him as well. But he hasn't had such a great second half of the international season. But yeah, just sometimes with a player that hasn't started any test matches, winning the breakthrough player of the year, I think people probably say Sasha, but Sasha obviously last year
Yeah.
was his breakthrough season. Nick, I don't know if you want to add.
No, just I agree with you. He is a special player, Pollock, and he can obviously irritate opposing players and also the opposing fans because he has a bit of a celebration after everything. And you wonder. Listen, I think he backs up a lot of his showmanship with his performance on the field. I mean, he's where I always think a player is tested is in turnovers. If you're going in and you're winning turnovers on the ground, you're properly brave. In this present state of rugby where you get cleaned out with such aggression, I mean, to get in over the and stay there is pretty impressive. And he did it for a tall guy. He can win ball on the ground. I've seen him do it on numerous occasions. And then obviously he's got tremendous pace and huge self-belief. So the fact he hasn't started, I'm not sure whether that'll make any difference. He's scored scored tries in both times he's come off the bench, and he made the contribution to the final try in the England game where he towed ahead the ball. Things happen. Ethan Hooker, funny enough, I much prefer the way he manages himself. He's on the field. He does everything to the best of his ability. You never see him push or shove or make any sort of appeal to the crowd or anything like that. He just concentrates on his job, and he does it remarkably well. So I think he must be close, in there as well. I'm just worried that perhaps all the hype around Pollock might have won it for him already.
Yeah, you sometimes feel that there has to be a bit of hype somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere because those type of
Yeah.
awards, you always get the feeling you have to give something to the Northern Hemisphere. Maybe I'm being a
Yeah.
bit flippant here, but just this lastly, just the weekend's games. Most of them look pretty one-sided. France, Australia, Wales, New Zealand. I think Scotland played Tonga. The only one really worth talking about, and an interesting one, is England, Argentina, because that should be quite a fascinating game. Gav, you want to come?
Gavin,
Yeah, okay. Firstly, Scotland are playing Chile,
Oh,
and
sorry.
there's something about this weekend's games that actually irritates me a bit. In that it's going to be, World Rugby are bringing in this Nations Cup next year,
Yeah.
which I think is ridiculous because it actually ring fences the top teams and it leaves out the other sides, and they speak so much about promoting rugby in those other countries. Chile are playing against Scotland tomorrow. I think it is Chile. It's not Tonga. I'm sure it's Chile. No, sorry, Chile are playing somebody. They're playing somebody. They're playing one of the top nations tomorrow. I'm sure it is Scotland. And to me, it's like said that will probably be the time that they actually play a top nation, because when the Nations Cup comes in next year, obviously the top teams are just each other all the time. And we're not going to see, for instance, like we did last year, Portugal coming to Bloemfontein. So I just want to say that because I do think World Rugby have erred there. We've got enough competitions. We've got the Rugby Championship. We've got the Six Nations, obviously, and the World Cup. And it's like, and it sort of almost like undermines the World Cup if you're going to have a Nations Cup every other year. So to me, that's a problem. Looking ahead at that game, look, I don't expect Argentina to win it, but I do think that England. Look, I mean, I'll have to make a confession here. A lot of people won't like. The one time I do support is it because we don't play that much test. I'm talking about the long format game, and I've been sort of watching the out of the corner of my eye whilst we've been talking, and England aren't doing well. There's been such a huge build-up to the series from their media who say this is our best chance ever, and that is so typical of England. And, I was always thinking to myself, well, let's see on the first day in Perth whether England really do have a chance. And at the moment, they're all, as the late Charles Fortune would say, they're all up a gum tree in their first innings in Perth. And their rugby media is like that as well. I mean, before last week, I mean, they were sort of saying, well, England are improving, but then they beat the All Blacks and suddenly like, let's bring on South Africa. So I think that there might be a little bit of a hangover for England, who are now sort of playing Argentina, who nobody over there seems to be expecting to be competitive, yet beat the British and Irish Lions in Birmingham and Dublin back in July. They beat South Africa in Argentina last year. They've beaten the All Blacks a number of times now in the last 4 or 5 years. Argentina have to be taken seriously. And in that game that they played against Scotland last week, it was clear to me that they were targeting this England game because they started with an understrength team and then finished with a side that they scored 33 points to 3 in the second half, I think it was, finished with their bench players on, and they shifted a gear just like South Africa do, and England actually have started to do. So I think that Argentina are really dangerous in that game. I've got a feeling that England will win, but I've got a feeling that it's going to be one of those games which will suddenly be seen as a step back for England. One more thing. Talking about the Nations Cup, England are coming to South Africa next year to play against us here. And they're already saying, well, that's going to sort of measure where England are in their progress towards the World Cup. Have they forgotten that between now and next year, they have to play France, I think, in Paris, and they have to play Ireland wherever they're playing Ireland? Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure they're going to win either of those two games. So the whole narrative will change again by the time they come in July.
Nick, a minute and a half, if you want to come in.
No, I won't add anything to what Gavin said. I agree entirely. I'm backing Argentina just because I want Southern Hemisphere sides to do well, and it'd be great if they win three out of their games on this tour. It'll be the first time, I think, ever in the professional era. They've got a great team if they start and if they start well. they've got the ability to beat England. As Gavin has already said, they've beaten New Zealand, they've beaten us, they've beaten Australia, they beat the British Lions. So there is a possibility. England are on a roll, but I think that's going to be closer than we think.
Okay, well, lots of games to talk to. Gavin, just to tell you, Chile are playing Italy and Tonga are playing Scotland this weekend. I just checked as well. But on that note, let's leave it there.
Well
We'll
done,
be
Brendan.
back.
You got right in there. Got a little straight left and a right hook.
I had to get that one in. Anyway, we'll be back
Well,
on
I'm playing
Sunday
a top
after the
team.
game and we'll chat again. But thanks, guys. We'll speak then. Cheers.
Cheers, Brendan.
Cheers.
Cheers.